But just, let's just look at the evidence. In 1980, we embraced this theory. The government would mess up a two-car parade. And President Reagan was good at it. You know, he could make you laugh, and he also was more ideological rhetorically than practically. Otherwise, the debt would be even bigger than it is. They restored about, he signed bills restoring about 40% of the money that was given out in tax cuts in 1981. But we began to do something we'd never done before as a country, ever. We began to run large structural deficits in good times and bad. And you can say, oh, well, President Reagan had a Democratic Congress. That's true, and there were Democrats who voted for all the spending and the tax cuts. But it's also true that the Congress actually appropriated slightly less money than the administration asked for in those 8 years. And it worked pretty well to generate a lot of jobs in the beginning, because it was like, unlike President Obama's program, it was an 8-year-long stimulus. But it started to play out, and then it produced almost no new jobs in President Bush's term, which is how I got elected. And I don't mean that funny. You know, I like, admire, and love him. He's a good man. And when he said it was voodoo economics in 1980, he was right, and he had to pay the price. You can't run a structural deficit without paying the price. Eventually, interest rates got so high, it cratered the economy. And I could come in and begin to balance the budget right away and cut that deficit, because I knew it would lower interest rates and investment would pick up and we'd be off to the races. Then I left off, and one of the things that was really helpful in all this was a rule called pay-as-you-go, which the Democratic Congress adopted and President Bush signed, to his credit, right before I got elected, which said if you want to start a new program, you got to stop something you're doing or come up with the money to pay for it. So after I left office, a lot of these same people who don't want to raise the debt ceiling now, what's the first thing they did? They let the pay-as-you-go rule expire. And they voted for 8 years to raise the debt ceiling and double the debt of the country. So how's it working? Well, there were 12 years before and 8 years after the time I served. How's it working? More jobs in those 8 years than in the 20 years combined. 100 times as many people moved out of poverty in those 8 years than in the 20 years combined. More new business formation, every other indicator. And the only 4 surpluses we've had since 1969, and the first time we had 4 in a row in more than 70 years. So this is not about whether you're fiscally conservative or not. This is about what works. This theory won't work. And that's why the president has been resisting it.